it's interesting the use of the word tecton. So in Luke chapter 2, there is a passage about Jesus as a child, and as a family, they go to the temple. And Mary and Joseph then leave and go home, but then they realize that they left Jesus in the temple when he's about 12 years old. And then Jesus goes on to say, well, I'm about my Father's business, inferring that he's doing the work of God the Father and not the father of Joseph. However, he then does go to do the work of his father Joseph, which is the tecton, as you say. It's interesting in Mark, it says, is this not the tecton? Whereas in Matthew, it says, is this not the son of the tecton? It was in Matthew scrubbing him up a little bit. But if tecton can mean two different things, and that Nazareth is such a rocky area, where did we get this Jesus, the wood carpenter, idea from that populated the art world for the whole of, forever?
Yeah. Well, several sources for this. Of course, tecton can mean a carpenter. So that's not a mistranslation. Also, to be honest, Galilee, and including the Nazareth area, is known to have been a lot more wooded in the early Roman period, and indeed the Roman and Byzantine periods, than it is today. It wasn't until the Ottoman period, centuries later, that most of the timber in Galilee was cleared away. So, in parts of Galilee. So, it's not that Galilee was a mass of dense forests, but there were little woods and not so little woods, which people could cut down trees out of and use. And we see this in terms of timber used in buildings. We see this in terms of resources from these woods being used through the centuries. Evidence, as you can imagine, gets better the later you go on. Tecton, meaning carpenter, could be the right translation. It could be somebody who did both stone carving and carpentry. That would be possible as well. But I think the problem, as in many interpretations that have gained currency about the Bible, and I'm not a biblical scholar, but I do know a little of ancient languages, is, as in any text, there are translations that, while not mistranslations as such, are translations of words giving one meaning of the word, whereas there could be others. And this seems to me something that translations of the Bible have been affected by, but also, frankly, translations of most ancient texts. So the Bible is not uniquely given to mistranslation or anything. And, various translations can lead to various different interpretations. But fortunately, archaeological evidence isn't prone to exactly that, but it can be interpreted in different ways. So, for example, in the Sisters of Nazareth site, the first century structure, the domestic structure, can be interpreted as a courtyard house, a more complex form of Jewish first century domestic building associated with an extended family, essentially a courtyard in the sense of being buildings grouped around an open space. Or it can be interpreted as a simple rock-cut dwelling. And to be honest, when I was writing the more formal scientific report on the Sisters of Nazareth site, I thought the courtyard house interpretation was preferable. But since then, I've changed my mind slightly and think that though that one is possible, the simple rock-cut dwelling interpretation is also pretty much equally possible. So you pay your money and take your choice. Consider for a moment the view of those who interpret this literally as Jesus' childhood home. It would affect how one viewed Jesus' childhood, whether he lived in a relatively comfortable, sorry, that wasn't a hand gesture, that was a fly, relatively comfortable courtyard house, or a very simple rock-cut dwelling. One would say the courtyard house would not be a wealthy building. I mean, the courtyard house is used in various forms, in various meanings in Roman archaeology. One meaning elsewhere in the empire is that it is quite a wealthy type of house. But in the archaeology of Galilee, we would use courtyard house usually in terms of this still lower status but extended family dwelling. So none of this means that Jesus was a posh person, but it might mean that he was from what one might call an ordinary rural Galilean background, the courtyard house, or from quite a poor background, the simple rock-cut dwelling.